Very good morning to this is a course regarding the managing a very hard cataract. We have a in panel very eminent surgeons who have experience of more than 20 years of doing cataract surgery. All of the speakers have a experience. They started their surgery in the OPSIS or U2 and gradually shifted to a higher generation machine. They experience more than 20 years. They show the curve of fecal emulsification. So we have the first speaker, Dr. Mohanto, will speak in backup strategy, and gradually we'll talk about the vertical chopping. We'll speak by Dr. Lob Kachogay, and myself, I'll cover the technique to conquer the Brunescent cataract. And Dr. Siddhartha Ghosh will speak about how to manage hard and hypermature cataract. And Dr. Ajay Pal will speak about the flats in hard cataract, and then management and premonitory sign of diagnosis of early complication and bailout. That is covered by Dr. Devashish Datta. We have with us Dr. Santosh Mahapatra. He will give the keynote address. Dr. Mahapatra, will you please start your presentation first? Or do you prefer to go last? You will first? Okay. No, it's up to you. You can start with the keynote address in this session. Thank you. So they have all the other sessions. So Dr. Siddhartha, Dr. Lob, please come in the stage. Dr. Devashish Datta. Not here. I request every speaker to stick to their allocated time. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to be with the alive people to deliver the keynote address. Though I am a retina surgeon, I am among the top cataract surgeons here. When the situation like dealing with Brunescent cataract fails in every respect, we are here to rescue, and the options I will just going to describe. So if there is no genuines and there is no option to put IOL, either in surgical or traumatic aphakia, we have different options starting from IOL in sulcus, ACIL, iris claw IOL, SFIL with different modifications. So this is the first one. This is a complication of cataract surgery, and as you have seen, the lens is delivered. Now I am trying to put a ACIL. I will make the ACIL upside down to make space for the IOL, and there is a good distance between the endothelium and the anterior surface of the IOL. So at the end, just the conjunctiva is secured in both the sides. Usually, vitrectomy is done to clear the vitreous all around, and iris put-in situation, when that you have a real posterior capsular vein or anterior capsular vein, then you can put the IOL in sulcus. Mostly in ruptured PC, it's anterior capsular vein. So you need to utilize the situation and you can best place the IOL. And it's usually a 3-piece or multi-piece IOL so that it remains stable throughout post-surgery. Third option we have is iris claw lens. The technique is very easy. Anybody can perform it. Just you need to clear the vitreous around the iris, both above and below. And you just need to tuck the iris into the holes available so that it's almost in the anatomical position of the lens. And needless to say that vitreous clearance is of paramount importance. You just need to hold the IOL, see how going through the side port and tucking the iris into the hole. SFIL, first variant is 8 suture. So if you are comfortable with putting sutures, then this is one of the options we have. But if you are not comfortable, other options are still available. You can see this is again one complication is where the anterior surgeons had made a temporal tunnel and failed, and SFIL with suture is placed. The second option for SFIL is with flap, no suture, using glue. So the rest of the particle matter is cleaned up. The IOL is delivered to the tunnel, taken out. The glue is put, the flaps are positioned. As because this is being performed by anterior surgeon, gonacot is put and residual vitreous is cleared. Flaps repositioned, looking good at the end. This I am performing a flap, no suture, no glue, SFIL. Where flaps are made, haptics are taken out. The other haptic on the other side. Sometimes if the other haptic goes down, you can take help of biome to take it out with a light pipe. Groove is made. Haptic is put into the groove in the sclera, both the sides, and the conjunctiva is just sutured. No glue needed. The seventh options we have, no flap, no suture, no glue. So here no flap is made, it's 26 plus ready, it is taken out. The other side, you need to approach from the opposite direction, taken out. Scleral groove is being made. IOL is secured into the groove. Conjunctiva sutured. So you can have a complication or you can have a affected trauma, but you have all the chance to put an IOL in the eye. It's a standard 3-piece IOL, overall length being 12.5 to 14, and it remains stable because you have all the options, so the eye is not left affected anyway. This is one of the cases where we don't have iris, but you see the SFIL is very stable. We have made a small study on that, and which is already published in Oman Journal of Ophthalmology. And to conclude, this is appropriate for eyes with deficient or absent PC, easily performed with available IOL designs, instruments, and with less surgical time. IOL stability is maintained in absence of iris also, and all eyes can have a lens, whether natural or implanted, whatever may be the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra, for a wonderful keynote address. It's an excellent overview of secondary IL. There is a no PC support. Thank you so much. Siddharth, would you comment on this? Anything? What type of technique do you like? You prefer to do iris claw or any interscleral fixation? Any type of, like blue dial or Yanini technique or grab-out technique, whatever?
Yeah, these are all wonderful techniques. Actually, both, all the techniques are good, but we need to decide which one works best for us. You know, Yamane is wonderful and that is the most popular now, I suppose. Yeah. But we need to understand that the technique that works best in our hands needs to be chosen. Yes. And of course, by the merit of the case, if the iris is very
your surgical expertise. But all the interscleral fixation, you have to put a pars plana indication, which is must. But you can do iris claw lens or ACIL without putting any pars plana irrigation system. Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra.
You can put a cement in that.
Yeah. Whatever. Let's start our GP course, and we'll start with Dr. Mahanto. He's a senior consultant in Disha Eye Hospital, working more than 20 years, and he'll talk about the backup strategies of heart cataract.
Thank you, Dr. Bhomit, and very good morning to all of you. I'll be talking on backup strategies for heart cataracts. So it's basically what exactly you should be prepared to deal with when you are tackling a heart cataract. These are the basic points I would like to highlight. So I don't have any financial interest to disclose. So these are some of the challenges we encounter in doing a heart cataract. The number one is incision. Number two is capsulorhexis. Number three is endothelial protection. Number four is hydrodissection and nuclear rotation, reducing the phaco energy and dealing with dehiscence and lax posterior capsule. All of them I will go one by one. So coming to incision, if your incision is tight while you are doing a heart cataract, it might increase the frictional heat, which hinders the fluid flow. And repeated injection of OBD, you are thinking that you are doing good, but it ultimately creates a no-flow state. And if you are pressing, going to the foot position 3 at this point of time, the heat will generate, the heat generated the tip will directly go towards the endothelium and towards the tip, causing endothelial injury as well as tunnel burn. So let's see a small video clip on incisional burn. It's a very hard cataract. As you can see, I have started doing the phacoemulsification. So phaco is going on. If you notice the CDE, it is increasing. And at this point in time, you can see the CDE is up to 70. So here, after I take out the phaco-pro, you will see a chalky white opacity over here, which is well circumscribed. It is not stromal hydration. You have to differentiate between stromal hydration and wound burn. So if there is a wound burn and you are seeing a fizz mouthing over there, put a suture. So there is no point keeping your ego that says no incision surgery, put a suture to be on the safe side. So as I was telling you, should always ensure fluid flow before moving on to the foot position 3. So now, if you see the chamber is filled with viscoelastic, I am ready for doing the phaco with a sharp chopper. At this point in time, you see there is the vacuum is there, but and is occluded. So until this occlusion breaks, do not move on to foot position 3. So you just move your phaco probe around so that the viscoelastic gets sucked in, and once it does, the vacuum drops to 0, and then you start doing your phaco. It was slightly larger capsulorhexis, and always be careful about the peripheral extension, as the capsules are usually very thin in heart cataracts, and also there is lack of red reflex, which is another thing which is a great hindrance to doing a rhexis, and might disrupt the margin with the phaco probe sometimes. That also you have to be very careful. So while doing the hydrodissection, the fluid wave is not always visible due to the dense nucleus. So there is a capsulolenticular block, target multiple points and decompress. Do not overdo. It might lead to cellular stress and posterior capsule blowout. So here you see a hydrodejection being performed in multiple points. At one point of time, there's slight decompression, taking the viscoelastic out of the anterior chamber, and then again doing it, slightly trying to rotate. It's not happening, so go to another point and put some more fluid, and then again decompress, put some more fluid, and now it rotates. So here you see there's no raise reflex at all, and we have started doing the axis. We have to be very careful. As I already said, that you should not move on to the axis might extend to the periphery. It's very thin. It's very difficult to control, and your axis should not be very small, because sometimes you need to convert them to manual small incision cataract surgery. Then the nucleus will pop up from the capsular bag if your axis margin is small. So again, doing hydrodejection at multiple points. Now it's rotating. So sometimes it's very difficult to rotate. Be careful not to overstress the venules. And now you can see it is rotating. So nuclear rotation is very crucial before the phacoemulsification in hard cataracts. High corticocapsular adhesions, resist rotation, and forcible rotation, as I said, leads to venular dehiscence. So you must be very careful of these facts. So the reported endothelial cell loss in phacoemulsification is varies from 4% to 25% in different literatures. So to protect the endothelium, we have these instruments in hand, is the dispersive and cohesive viscoelastics. So one technique is a soft shell technique in which the two OVDs are used. One is a low viscosity dispersive OVD, and the other one is a high viscosity cohesive OVD into an outer and inner shell respectively. So on the left, the intercolor is for the coating the endothelium, and the cohesive is for the creating space. So this is a soft shell technique video. So at first you go on and inject some viscoat, and then cohesive viscoelastic like Provisc or Hilon below it, so as to create space. And it also pushes the dispersive viscoelastic to the endothelium in order to protect it. So chopping is the best technique for dealing with hard cataracts, and will be discussed in great detail by Dr. Bhomik. So I will just basically highlight some few important points. So to better impel the nucleus, retract the irrigation sleeve maximally and bury the tip. A very sharp vertical chopper will best incise into the dense nuclear face without displacing it. So these are the two things you should remember while doing the chopping. So you also remember that the hard nucleus is also very thick. So this is a hard brown nucleus taken out with SICS, so you have to remember the anatomy of this particular nucleus while going ahead and doing the phacoemulsification for hard cataracts. So Ben Kellman tip is preferred. Nowadays more advanced tips have come, and the sharp chopper is preferable. Can you move in sound, please? These cataracts require more phaco energy and more phaco time. Our aim will be to reduce both of them. Hyperpulse technologies. Our aim should be to use minimum phaco time and minimum phaco power as possible. The vacuum should be on the higher side to carry away the emulsion. So you should intermittently irrigate the phaco tunnel so as to reduce the incidence of wound burn. So I'll stop here because it will be dealt with by Dr. Bhomik. Brown nucleus is chopping and lateral separation is. So these are some of the technologies which help us in reducing the phaco energy, like the hyperpulse technology and the torsional or the ozil technology. So sometimes we find a very lax posterior capsule, as you can see at the end of the surgery, the capsule is fluttering. So that you have to be very careful. And you should be prepared with hooks, rings, etc. Like Dr. Mahapatra said, you should be always, should have these devices in your armamentarium before doing the hard cataracts. And in case of difficulty, do convert and do not put your ego before you. Do convert to save the patient's eyes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohanto, for excellent overview of managing heart cataract. Learning is basically very gradual. You have to learn gradually over the year how to manage so much difficult cases. You have to choose your cases as per your expertise. And I always believe a planned ECC is better than unplanned SICS. A planned SICS is always better than unplanned SICS, and it is your decision how you approach in every cases. But we'll try to cover every aspect of how to manage, do the phacoemulsification in very hard cataract. Over to Love. This is the topic of the Dr. Love is basics of vertical chopping, which is very important to manage a hard cataract. Basically, this is the ideal technique to the vertical chopping in hard cataract. What do you look at?
Thank you, Dr. Arup, for giving me this opportunity. So I'll just go through the basics before showing the video. And as you know, what is chopping? It is a manual instrument forces to segment the nucleus, and it replacing the ultrasound with a power which is otherwise needed to sculpt the grooves, and exploiting natural fracture planes within the hardened nucleus. Advantages, definitely the most important advantage is reduction of the phaco energy, reduction of stress in zonules and capsular bag, especially for hard cataracts, ability to perform supracapsular emulsification, decreased reliance on red reflex, and greater reliance on maneuvering the second instrument than the phaco tip. And as you all know, I'll skip this. There are two types, which are horizontal and vertical, in which the vector force in horizontal chopping is horizontal, while in vertical it is vertical. So tips and tricks would be intact capsulorhexis, a good, Dr. N has already covered, a good hydrodissection, cleaning up the anterior cortex before burying the phaco tip. And the phaco tip should enter the lens immediately in front of the subincisional part of the rhexis, and avoid beyond the proximal half of the nucleus. This is important for vertical chop. So let's go through some of the cases in which vertical chop technique has been demonstrated depending on the hardness of the cataract. Though it is a course on a Brunescent cataract, but I will gradually move from a normal cataract to a Brunescent and hypermature cataract. And as you can see, in the easy part is the phaco tip is never going to the the inferior sub-rhexis margin. It is generally in the center, always visible, and that is the advantage of vertical chop over the horizontal chop. Horizontal chop, generally the chopper goes towards almost the equator and then cuts the nucleus. And aim should be to cut in as many as minimum 4 for normal cataracts, but even 6 pieces would be better. And at the end of it is you can finish it at CD as low as 2. Now going to a slightly harder cataract, which is grade 3, again you see once the embedding is done, and chopping becomes easier in grade 3 compared to a softer cataract. And compared to the previous case, here you could see that chopping is much easier with just one cut. It comes in the, divides into multiple pieces. And instrument settings are important in this. As you can see, this was one of my earlier cases in which IOP was set at 55. Now now I am doing at IOP of 26. So as you graduate on the machine, as you become much more comfortable, you can go to a very low IOP. And here next comes the total cataract. And in these cases, especially for vertical chopping, you have to expect that zonules may be weak. So the size of the rexus is very important. And as you can see, the initial rexus was small, so a small relaxing cut was given in the rexus. This is very, very important to avoid PC rent or zonular dialysis in hard cataracts. The size of the rexus, if you are confused about whether it is small or not, it's always better to enlarge it before you start phacoemulsification. And now you have a respectable size, and same thing in the center, you make a crater. As the cataract becomes harder, I do this technique that first make a crater in the center and then start chopping. And as you see here, 1, 2, 3, it is a third chop, then 4, 5, 6, 7. So after 7, you start doing segment removal. So it becomes easier. You use lesser phaco energy, and even after that, you can see smaller pieces are made from that also. Just recently, I was making another presentation on PC rent, and very similar case. I did a small rexus, and even though I was I wanted to enlarge it, but since it was a combined case with a VR surgeon, I got overconfident and started phacoemulsification with the same small rexus, and eventually had a nucleus drop. And once the pieces are small, it comes to the phacotape more easily and in segment removal. So next we come to the actual Brunescent cataract, and as you can see, this is almost black. So again, a central crater is made. Large rexus. You have to keep on going deep so that the posterior plate breaks. The most critical part in these kind of cases is that if you are able to break the posterior plate or not. So large deep crater in between, and then you start the vertical chop every 1 to 2 hours, clock hours. And these are the cases in which, again, you have to see that the phacotape doesn't get occluded because it may lead to an incisional burn. And if the pupil becomes small, it's always better to use enlarge the pupil using hooks or any similar device. And patience is the key. Don't be in a hurry because then the chances of complication increases. So this is the Brunescent type, and finally I would go to a hypermature cataract with a hard and a small nucleus. The part of the nucleus has got liquefied, and then it becomes very mobile in the bag, so you don't get the grip properly. So first, the rexus is slightly on smaller size, and better not to, as you could see that the whole nucleus started coming out of the bag, better not to do that because again that will cause stress on the zonules, and then you will have to emulsify almost the full nucleus closer to the endothelium, leading to corneal edema later on. So within the bag, multiple chops. Again, you could see here almost 7-8 pieces, but still the posterior plate is intact. If the posterior plate is intact, just lift it up granules, you don't touch the posterior capsule. So these are some of the illustrations by which vertical chop techniques can be done. Thank you so much.
So our next speaker will be Dr. Arup Bhomik, who will be speaking on techniques to conquer Brunescent cataracts. Thank you, Love. The wonderful presentation, and he shows the multiple grades of how to do a vertical chop in different hardness of a nucleus. So the basic point of every dealing the hard cataract is do a deep trench. So in our course, this course, we presented this course in AIOS almost 5 to 6 times, ACRS, American Society, almost this is a 15, 16 times we are presenting the course. But all the speaker will stress on few things. There will be some repetition of some cases that is a deep trench and how to do a chop. So it is very important we try to stress on this particular factor. So the problem with hard cataract is it needs very high energy, and it often come with the corneal complication, like post-operative there is too much of corneal edema, there may be corneal blunt little bit, or maybe corneal band on which you have to put a suture and ultimately get the post-operative astigmatism. And the main important problem is capsular junular problem. Whenever you try to chop this, you apply the most force and it creates some kind of capsular junular problem. Why it is difficult? It is basically, it is hard, it is large, and it is thick also. These are the three problems in hard cataract, and these are the associated problems. And arcus senalis, where it's hampered the visualization, thin, and most of the cases it come with a floppy and thin capsule, and sometimes with the minimum force the PC can rupture, because in thin capsule and long-standing cataract there is a fibrosis of any kind of fibrosis of in the posterior capsule or equator of the capsule, as is seen in the anterior capsule. Whenever there is a fibrosis, they lost their elasticity. So if you try to separate, then it is rupture. So, and the junular problem. And difficulties to manage has a very limited space in the capsular bag. And as I said, this is a hard and very difficult to break the posterior plate, but most of the cases it has a very leathery fiber. And most of the time, complication during the chopping or division of the nucleus is having in the junular area. You apply during division, trying to apply more force in the left hand to chop the nucleus, you make a junular dialysis, and or there is a rupture in the equator. This is typically occur in cases of complication. There is a rupture in the capsular bag, not in the PCM. This is a rupture in the equator of the capsular bag. So these are the main problems. So these are the different techniques, but the most accepted technique worldwide is deep cataract. That means deep bulk in the center of the nucleus and vertical chop, as Dr. Love shows in the previous video. So nuclear disassembly is the most important. Debulk, then chop and break the posterior plate. If you cannot able to break the posterior plate in one attempt, no problem. Keep on doing separation and debulk and chopping, and ultimately you can able to do the. So my preference is, as I said, vertical chopping, and machine is very important to understand machine any kind of cataract. Say if you are and tip of phaco tip, if your phaco tip diameter is a larger, it will grip better than the smaller tip. So as an example, machine with a easy teeth which has a larger diameter, it is always gives a better hold of the nucleus. Or either side, if you use the balance tube in the Centurion machine, it has a very easy cutting capability, but its ability to hold the nucleus is poor. So larger axis all devolve. So this is I want to just highlight one case. This is a very hard cataract and hypermature cataract. You just notice this case. I am trying to break the nucleus after doing a central debulk. I thought this debulk is sufficient, and you can see I have to apply much more force. And you just notice my right hand. During the separation, I am trying to separate the posterior float in the one attempt, and I pushing the nucleus try to separate the chopper, and again I pushing the nucleus with my right hand, holding the nucleus in the right side. So ultimately what happened, and gradually I increases my pressure to break the posterior capsular, and ultimately there is a granular disease. This is often happen in cases of hard cataract. In one case, and see this, I'm just fast forwarding this case. This is a good trench. Again, try to break the nucleus. I am putting too much of pressure into the to separate the posterior float in one attempt. So I get a good crack there, but in the meantime there is some granular damage because I hold off my working place I shifted in the right side and neglecting the left side, and say there is some kind of granular problem. Now I am trying to remove the nucleus out of the bag. I already created some granular problem there, and you see, which was unnoticed to me, now nucleus is failed to rotate, and there is a granular problem. So in that case, again, you have to put a capsular hook and do. These kind of phenomena very commonly happen in case of very hard cataract, because there is a capsule granular stress, excessive force applied by the left hand force. There is a counter force and the torque of the nucleus. Torque of the nucleus creates abnormal abnormally creates some pressure in some part of the capsule and create ultimately one granular problem. So please don't try to crack the posterior plate one attempt. Gradually you increase force, make a small place, ultimately you will able to make. Now how much you trench? That's very important, how much you trench. Are you make a deep large trench, or make this is second one, this is a deep and small trench. If you make a large trench, the technique of the chopping will be different, and if you make a deep but small trench, the technique will be different. So it will create absolutely behave differently in your surgery. I'll show you later. And as described by the Dr. Abhay Vasavada, multi-level chopping is a wonderful chopping. You can hold the deeper nucleus, deeper part, and gradually you can separate. I just showing this case. This is a hard cataract, Brunescent cataract, and with time I am taking time. It's make a large trench there. Now it is a large trench. So should I, and now I proceed for the chopping. If you make a large one, you actually holding the nucleus slightly more periphery. So it is very difficult to create a crack into the posterior center of the plate, the first attempt. So you have to continue your cracking without expect that will create a crack in the center of the nucleus. So you just continue cracking and try to make a separate. So it is not possible to get a very hard cataract when you are holding What is the difference between the small cataract, small deep cataract and large deep cataract? Now I remove this and remove the teeth with the normal teeth, and now you just notice I am holding the nucleus relatively center, not in the large cataract. Large cataract I am holding the nucleus of the periphery. I am holding the nucleus in the center. Now see the tracking pattern. The each pattern will be different. Now with one attempt you can able to track the center plate, because when you see the periphery you need a big separation force like a wheel, you go to the center plate. Now if you hold in the center of the nucleus, and it is easily to track the posterior plate. But this kind of chopping you need to very expert hand. You need to do expertise over the year. You can gather the expertise. So I just conclude the session. So it is again the debulk and chopping, and how you debulk, and the difference between two type of debulk I explain you. If you, for the beginner, you make it large and deep. For over the year, if you gain experience, you make it only deep centrally, and you are able to crack the nucleus in one shot. Sometimes you are not able to, even then you are not able to do crack. And as Dr. Mohanto described the sharp chopping, you can, just want to show this video. This is that not working. Yeah, it is play not working. It is something we can. Okay. Okay, I finished my time. So latest technology which is available, definitely femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery. It's definitely advantageous for the very hard cataract, and definitely we have now a good machine with good fluids and some kind of, and it is very important to know your machine. Debulk and vertical chopping for hard cataract, you need to have a long tip sharp chopper, multi-level chopping, and phaco tip is also very important. Which machine you are using, how it is hold the nucleus, how you will cut the nucleus, it is very important. Thank you so much. And I like to invite Dr. Rajay Pal, and where I finish the femto-assisted cataract surgery in case of hard cataract.
Thank you, Arup. Thank you for inviting me to your course. As you thought in my course, I think they are waiting for you. Well, I'll be speaking on flax and Brunescent cataract. Is it shown? Okay. So, you know, the flax has got various the profile parameters where you can make it 6 shots, 8 shots, multiple matrices. Different machine has different features. But this is what the clinical outcome of femtolaser assisted cataract surgery versus conventional surgery for hard cataract. Definitely it has shown that the endothelial is preserved, and there is a leads to faster visual rehabilitation, and there has been number of studies to prove that femtolaser actually brings down the effective phaco time by 20 to 30%. As a result, gives a better result. Now, for various machines, you can use various parameters. Now, this is the 350 micron gauge spacing that I will be using, 5 to 6 repetition in hard cataracts as against 2 to 3 in softer or medium cataracts. And anterior, the margin, safety margin that I do is 500 micron in both eye, and the vertical and the horizontal spots, as you say, 40 microns or 10 microns. There are newer machines have come out which have even smaller, and energy developed is nanojoule as against the microjoules that we have, the Zimmer Z8. I just saw the demo yesterday. So this is the catalyst platform that we use. Now let's come to a few videos. Now this is a typical that I do in a grade 3 or bordering to grade 4 cataract. This rexis is so easy, and I've got very easy 6 cuts. With the 5 to 6 repetition, you might have a little bit of air bubble, but you don't need to move it so much with the present technique. You just go already have the third generation machines which gives lesser and lesser energy. As Arup was saying that you have to move your left hand and a lot of pressure on these zonules, but those pre-cut segments actually help you avoid that, and this typical grade 3 cataract which you can just get it out slowly one by one, and you may not do that big crater, but if it is too hard, definitely you do a big crater. Now this is another case where you are using the 6 cuts along with the matrices. This uses a bit more energy, but as you can see the rexis is free floating. Normally I would prefer around 5.5 rexis in these sort of cases. My average is around 5 or 5.25. See, just a tap gets that air bubble out, the fear that is there of air bubble, and so look at this, just a little bit of tap here and there. I don't bother much about the air bubble that has formed. Just try to tack it, because the pneumo-dissection that takes place, it separates it. You will not do a big crater, just clear the center part, and see, just the left hand, a little bit of tap, the pre-cut sections easily come off, the second piece, and the third, as you can see, I can just rotate it. I'm not trying to move it too much, because the side movements are not that much, so I can have it easily. And just see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces are there. The energy used is, see here at this stage I'm using around 30 or 40% of energy, as I would have been using around 60 to 70% energy in a normal case. So once these matrices are there, so very little energy that I'm using, say as low as 20, 25 that I'm using in this signature pro machine, and the emulsification becomes fast and easier. Therefore that's so good on the endothelium. Now look at this small pupil, the third piece I'm using, and this is a hard cataract, so I've done around 4.5 rexis instead of 5.5. That was the area that it was allowing, so I just put a B-hex, and once I put the B-hex, I just skip that part. This B-hex got set. See, this is again a hard cataract, small pupil, and just tacking it up here, tacking it there. So I don't have to move. In a normal small rexis, you would have to do a lot of lateral movement. See, there's a little bit of tapping there and slowly separating it. It is already separated, so I just have to tease those fibers there, and then get that one piece, try to get that one piece out. Now I'm not getting it, I'm just rotating it and trying to get the first piece out. Once I get the first piece out, see, so easily I can emulsify it, and once I've emulsified, so everything is so controlled, because I have got those pre-chopped pieces. So you can just get it down and emulsify it again using, see, lesser energy. Though I have put it around 60, the power used is hardly 30, 35, this infinity machine. And once I've got that small pieces up, the surgery is just like a routine phaco that you would do, bring that out and get it. So it may not be hanky-dory in all cases. Now this is a case of very hard cataract, grade 4 or grade 5. So we have done it, taken the rexis out. This I have gone and done around 5.5 millimeters, so I've got tacked it. So this, the cut is there. I just had this, was the early cases, just had the 4 repetition in this case. So I just made a small crater. As I mentioned this, the zonules are weak. I was bothered if the zonules are okay or not, but I'm trying to separate. The separation becomes easy. I don't have to stretch too much, but somewhere down the line I realized that I'm not okay. The lens is tilting a bit. So all I have to, in this case also, salvage this patient. See, I'm trying to do it and still not sure whether I have done anything wrong. Everything looks fine. Once this is there, and then I see that the lens as a whole is tilting a bit. So I just try to see the position, what I am. This is a whole, almost a whole of nucleus there, and doesn't look there. So I just get it outside. I thought of outside the capsular bag, and I thought of doing a scaffold, but then I thought this being a scaffold, such a hard cataract, this almost 75-year-old gentleman, the cornea would not be healthy. So I just do what most of us would do in these sort of cases, or maybe just increase the incision and take that whole nucleus out instead of bothering too much of doing a scaffold, and at the end of the day, there it is. I just put a lens on the surface and I will capture. Thank you. Thank you for your patient training.
Thank you, Ajoyda, for the wonderful presentation. I have one or two questions for you. What is the percentage reduction in photo energy if you are doing flat vis-a-vis routine photo in hard cataracts?
In this sort of cataracts, so if I put it around 50 to 60%, I just drop it down by 30%. I do it at 40%. In some cases, even 20%. Depends on the machine. So if I'm using the Signature Pro, normally your 20 to 30% energy is more than enough, which a similar grade I would be doing around 40 to 50%.
So it's definitely protecting the endothelium and the other ocular structures as well. So one more question is, I have seen you routinely using cap and blue for staining the anti-cataract.
Especially in a very hard cataract, because see, there is always a lurking fear that the rexus might be there. So if I routinely use it, I can crack it, trace it, where the rexus margins are there, and especially these hard cataracts while trying to take off, one of, especially the white cataracts, where the cut may not be complete. So that might spread up. But anyway, most of the hard cataracts I do a 5.5 rexus instead of 5 or 5.2 rexus.
5.5
rexus.
So does it offer a good overlap?
It can offer up to 5.5. No, routinely I use 5 or 5.1 or 5.2. You can expand.
No, I mean, is it offering a good overlap on the lens optic?
Yes, 6 millimeter lens. I mean, those hard cataracts are too hard. I use rather more of safety for the patient than. I mean, in normal and the manual, when I do not exactly 6, but always less than 6, because I have a rexus marker which is 5 and 5.5 normally. So for a very hard cataract, in a black Brunescent, I generally use a 5.5.
Thank you so much, Ajoyda, for the nice presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Siddhartha Ghosh, a prolific cataract surgeon from Kolkata. He will be speaking on how to manage hard and hypermature cataract. Over to you, Siddhartha.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Bhumika and Dr. Mahanta, for including me in this course. This is a wonderful course running for years. Well, in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about how to manage hard and hypermature cataract. Firstly, let us discuss the principles of management. We'll stick to the basics of principles of management that we do in our day-to-day life, and then we go to the videos. First thing, the use of OVDs. The use of OVD should be judicious and liberal as merits the case. And of course, pupillary management is again very important. These are all advanced cases where you can expect smaller pupils, floppy iris syndromes and all that. So you need to be very much prepared for handling these pupils. Next is the capsule management. A good rexus is half the work done. So because these are very hard cataracts, you need a very, adequate size, large rexus so that, two things happen. As you have heard in the previous talk by Dr. Mahanta, in backup strategies, you need to be prepared. If you have a larger rexus, you can convert to SICS. But otherwise also, managing this hard cataract for phaco, we need a good capsular rexus. And the nucleus management is also of utmost importance, and these are very hard cataracts, so we need to impale the center of the nucleus, make a deep groove or crater so that you can crack these lenses, and the crux of the matter is you need to crack the posterior plate as well. Let us start with the videos. This is one such advanced cataract. The first step, as we said, it's a stained capsule. So we will go for decent capsular rexus, and to achieve a decent capsular rexus, we go slow and steadily so that we maintain, we are sure that we are going to make a good rexus, because these are advanced cataracts and these capsules are very fragile, and when we use strip and glue, it becomes very brittle as well. So these are very prone to get torn in different directions and be uncontrolled, so we need to go slow, use adequate amount of viscoelastics. We all know about Asinov's soft cell techniques, and whatever technique we use, we need to make sure that we have a decent rexus. Now, once you have a rexus, you can do hydrodissection and then go ahead, impale the nucleus in the center, make peripheral cracks which doesn't extend to the posterior plate maybe, but if we make multiple cracks, what happens is the And as you can see here, I'm taking out this central hard core of the nucleus, and if you can separate it, we can emulsify it within the, this is the whole central core of the nucleus. We emulsify it within the bag maybe, and once we emulsify this, we get a lot of space, in the center. That space helps us in very many ways. The first thing is we can now extend the peripheral cracks to the central plate, which is hard plate, and see we can do multi-level chopping as it was shown, and each pie is separated and then emulsified. Now this becomes simple and very efficient energy-wise as well. And once we take all the pies out, we can implant a lens of our choice. Well, this is another situation where you can expect a lot of calcifications in the capsule, and these capsule calcifications won't allow you to have a good rexis. So you need to be careful again. Some places it may just run away, so we need to be very patient, and at times we have to cut the capsule at places because these are dense calcifications. And once we go ahead, we have made multiple small nicks as well, because these calcifications don't just cut, it may tear to the periphery. So at times do little small nicks and then pull them again. And whenever it's not really working, it's expensive, we can take the help of macro access forceps to cut open these tough, stubborn calcified areas. As you can see, this calcified zone is extending to the periphery, so we need to kind of cut them and to make continuity. Unless we have a good anterocapsular opening, we really can't go ahead. So I use a carved macro scissors to cut these stubborn areas of calcification. Otherwise, we cannot really go ahead. So, and then go ahead with the rexis as was planned. The whole thing is so densely calcified that we need a lot of time to, cut and complete the rexis. So this is how we have finally completed the rexis. Once we complete the anterocapsular opening, we can go ahead like what we have described, small pies we make, and each one is taken up one by one. Now let us look at another situation. For want of time, I am not continuing the whole video here. Yeah, okay. And this is another situation where you can see there is a lot of intumescence. So, but we know there is a dense nucleus inside. So here I started the rexis, go little gradual, start with a small one. If it is under control, you can go ahead and enlarge it. You see the milky fluid coming out, and then I take a macro rexis forceps to just make an adequate opening here. So you need to hold firmly and go quadrant-wise. Let us not hurry in these cases, because if you lose these rexis, these hard cataracts, it becomes really difficult. And let us remember, all the capsule, the anterior as well as the posterior, are very fragile here. So once we have a good rexis, we have a good backup strategy as well. At least the anterior rexis margin, if it is intact, we can place the lens there in case of a catastrophe. But if we go slow, steady, in a planful way, as you can see, you can simply crack. These are little leathery, may not be Brunescent, but they are little leathery and difficult to crack and separate. So we need to do multi-level chopping. Here again I am taking out the central hard core of the nucleus to make space so that lateral separation becomes easy and each pie can be taken at one go. So this is how we separate, tease these fibers out and separate and take each pie. Let us go to another situation. This you can understand, it's a little intimation, and this capsule also has a lot of calcifications. Staining, we know it will make it more brittle, but you can't avoid it. And this case will be a little interesting. Now once you displace the milky fluid, you can see the dark colored nucleus inside. Here again, little calcification is there. So I start with a smaller kind of a rexis. The whole milky fluid starts coming out. If we have good control over the situation, let us make a smaller one initially. Use of OVD, as I said at the very beginning, needs to be very judicious, and it gives good control to your axis maneuver. Once you have achieved some degree of good circular axis, you can enlarge it to your liking to as big as possible and as big as it is required. And then once you complete the axis well, we can go ahead with the emulsification. But these cases, these cataracts are they may behave differently at times. In this case, you will see this nucleus behaves very funnily enough because most of the milky fluid escapes. It doesn't have a tamponade or a support. So this keeps rotating and moving. As I say, I want to impale the center of the nucleus, but then look, it will rotate and move around. It's moving around. Very difficult to catch hold of it. Now it starts rotating again. You notice carefully. See, it's rotating. So it becomes very difficult to catch hold of it because it's all mobile. But we need to understand that we have to impale it at the center. Unless we impale it in the center of the nucleus, we really cannot go ahead with emulsification. So once I can achieve a central hold at the center, make a small crater. Once you make a small crater, things become easier, and you can hold and make pies. Once you make a pie with 2 cracks, you can manage this nucleus. Well, in certain situations, this looks like a moderately dilated pupil. It's not fully dilated, but let us remember, for a safer note, these advanced cataracts, we should not take any chances. If it is, we are unsure about the pupil size or whether or not it's going to maintain the same, it's best to, for managing the nucleus, we need a bigger axis. So we have use a pupil expansion device, an aluminum ring in this case, and then go ahead with the surgery. So these are small little things that we need to do for managing these hard and Brunescent cataracts, and multi-level chopping has already been discussed, so I'm not going to. This is one situation where the whole bag is wobbly because it's a big one, so I use capsular hooks to stabilize and then go ahead with the surgery. And this is multi-level chopping. If we cannot crack it till the central plate, we need to go deep and then make lateral in different planes and then make lateral separation so that it separates properly and we can take each pie at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siddhartha, for the wonderful talk. I would like to ask you a few questions like, if in hypermetric cataracts it's very common to lose the axis margin.
Yes.
So what is your advice for beginners?
Yeah, there are many strategies. One common good thing, basic thing should be right, good amount of viscoelastics, one thing. And it is nice to take, aspirate from the center. There are many techniques, but it is easy and simple to aspirate the milky fluid from the center. And then go ahead with a smaller axis and then make it bigger as you go ahead. But if you have really lost it, then let us not panic. Inject more viscoelastic and then don't inflate it too much, and then just make a nick and convert it as much circularly as possible. Right. And then go ahead with the surgery. But if you have lost it too badly, unretrievable, convert it to an SSCS.
So what, according to you, is the most difficult step in dealing with hypermature and hard cataracts? Hypermature hard cataracts.
Yeah.
Which is the most
I think
step?
Management of capsule is most important. Yeah. And if that is done, half your work is done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Siddhartha. And we move on to our next speaker, Dr. Debashish. This is Doctor. So he will be speaking on management of complications and safe bailout.
Yes.
Over to you, Dr. Debashish.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here with me. I'll be discussing on how to bail out in case you are in a soup. So, good morning and greetings from Disha Hospitals, Kolkata. Let's go straight ahead. So, yes. This is a black cataract and a grade 4 type of a cataract. Let's see how we go about it. Video is not playing. Video. It should play. First video is not playing. Next video चल रहा है. This is working. लेकिन पहले वाला नहीं चल रहा. Let me deal with this. So this is, as you see, it's the black cataract. You have an SICS done. The incision size should be reasonably big here, and then you can have viscoelastics above and below the hard nucleus, and then you can have it out with a irrigating vectors or with this cannula. So cannula will occupy less space of the tunnel, and it will be easier to visco-express the nucleus. Now here you see that we begin for a phaco, hard nucleus. So proper rexus of about 5 millimeters is done. We go ahead with the chopping procedure. Chop is not very much successful. It has become a ball. So the surgeon decides to go in for a primary second daylight with a SICS. 1 millimeter from the limbus, we make a tunnel and then do proper incision, open it out properly sideways. And one thing you must do, increase the size of the rexus. Because if you want to get a big nucleus out through a 5 millimeter rexus, you end up losing the capsular bag altogether. So if you don't come to your rexus proper, you have to have 4 nicks to increase the size. So here you have this nucleus being pulled out into the anterior chamber, visco above and below, and there is a snare. Here we are making 3 pieces, here 2 pieces. Check for the snare movement. The snare is free, then you go ahead and snip it. Here is the Ariga type of forceps, cups at the tip. Then go inside, hold the, get out the grab, and take it out. So a small incision, and you have 3 fragments getting out through a small incision, and you can afford to have lesser astigmatic induction, and you can afford to put in foldable lenses. Now, this is a hypometric cataract with no epinuclear shell, so you see that it is slipping. So the surgeon have achieved a crack, and then it's the pie. And the experienced surgeon notices something is wrong, amiss. So there has been breach of the posterior capsule. So viscoelastics, rotate it out into the anterior angle of the anterior chamber. There's vitreous in the anterior chamber. You can strain it out with this tricot, and then go ahead with a vitrectomy. Get rid of the vitreous that is in the capsular bag. And this is the capsular IOL technique as popularized by Dr. Amar Agarwal. Then it is placed in the sulcus, this multiplex lens. And under cover of viscoelastics in there, you see like cohesive viscoelastics, you do a reclamasification, check for any vitreous in the anterior chamber, and there you go. So this technique is called IOL scaffold. This one you see a very leathery cataract. You chop it, separate it hard. You separate it, you get those fragments, but there's something amiss. So Hilon GV, no financial interest. You inject with 26 gauge at the cannula into the anterior vitreous through the pars plana. Here you see the fragment is coming. So it provides a base so that it does not sink down. Now do a pars plana vitrectomy. Basically, we cannot, this posterior levitation is not recommended. SICS bailout, tunnel, increase of this thing, and you have irrigation, a second pars plana port, irrigation in the anterior into the pars plana, and do vitrectomy and have the fragments free from vitreous entanglements. And then you push it into the anterior chamber and you can visco-express it out. So it is not that you are levitating the nucleus with the vitreous and having a lot of traction. So you do vitrectomy and then you levitate. And always put a suture and remove the excess viscoelastic after the end of placing the lens. Now, if there's any suspicion, here we have this, there's something wrong. This is mature cataract, so triton blue. No, not triton blue, triamcinolone lens. It's another T only. So you strain up the vitreous to begin with. See what is the state of affairs in the anterior chamber. Now, with irrigation in the anterior chamber and the pars plana port being done. I mark the shaft, how much I'm going to go in, because it's going to be a blind procedure. I can't see what is behind the lens. So with the cutting end facing the optic disc, I go in and I start irrigation in the anterior chamber and start the vitrectomy at the in the anterior vitreous. So as you can see, the vitreous recedes to a great extent through the granular dialysis region into the anterior vitreous. And you have to be careful that you don't injure the already intact posterior capsule, intact posterior capsule. And then you can stain the anterior capsule with small alucards of trypan blue. Here, the video is not playing. You see the chop has been achieved, so there is no epinucleus. So after the chop, you have separated at least one chop has to be complete, and you can see the PC. So you go through the basic and through the cannula, you inject viscoelastic beyond the nuclear fragment in the capsular bag, just in front of the posterior capsule. So this is an entire nucleus, nucleus has become, entire lens has become nucleus, so there is no epinuclear shell. So you create an arthrogenic epinuclear shell in between the hard nucleus fragment and the posterior capsule. So nowadays machines are very good, I understand we don't have surges, but still the bare PC is protected by a cohesive viscoelastic which stays there to give you a support. I cannot play the video here. Again. Oh, this is, I call it hypermetric cataracts. What do I do? The nucleus is bare. The PC is absolutely bare. It can go away any time. You can have a little bit of surge and you are gone. You don't have audio. Okay. So you put in here Hilon GV below it, no financial interest. And then under cover of viscoelastics, you put in the IOL. And so it sits tight on the capsular bag, already intact capsular bag, and do a sacco in the capsular bag itself under cover of viscoelastic, which was viscoelastics. So this is another IOL scaffold technique, whereby in hypermeasure Morgagnian cataracts only you can do this, and nothing else. So intact posterior capsule, IOL already in the bag, you do a photoemulsification, and in the bag almost, and the IOL. So here you see BSS is a hard cataract, you may end up in a wound burn. So there is continuous irrigation, the assistant drops BSS at the wound margin to cool it down, so that you don't end up with a burn. So you can see whatever be the sophistication of the machine, degree of sophistication of the machine, but still it can end up in a burn if you are not very careful. And now here in this, you inject trypan blue below the capsule and massage it so that it spreads uniformly, stain the anterior capsule. And I'm not very fond of dilating instruments, so I do a stretch pupilloplasty as a routine. So I think this causes minimum damage to the sphincter muscles. Achieve chop and cleavage planes and go ahead with but this cataract is tenacious. And you see for a right-handed person, I have caused a wound burn. And there's and I've burned my ego also. So I'm doing a FICO, I've caused incision burn, so I'm a bad surgeon. But I accept that and I give a suture. So you must give a suture if you have a wound burn, put your ego aside and sleep comfortably and make the patient also safe. You won't end up with an endophthalmitis. So you go ahead and put even in capital, I think a single suture can be given. Don't think about the tightness of the wound in whatever cylinder it does increase, let it, because just nip it off after 1 week or 2 weeks and everything will be fine. So, always make sure to bury the knot. Can I have the audio? Tremulousness and step alarm bells. Ultimately, more than 3 blocks of subluxation of the capsular bag was evident. And in the heat of the battle, I maintained foot position 2 instead of 1, but the tip was occluded all along, so no harm was done. well that ends well. Excessive force should never be used to move the nucleus in the bag. Vitrectomy by pars plana in subluxation does not unzip the remaining intact granules. Cochlear hook should be placed before placing the CPR. Anterior chamber should never be allowed to collapse using adequate visco. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Devashree, for a wonderful library of videos. So we have 5 minutes time. If any questions from the audience to any of the panelists, please.
Capsule. So I would want to know where to buy, where is it company? Find out.
Very expensive. I have no financial interest in this, but I got this made from Epsilon. You can ask them to give you a curved micro scissors. You know, if it is curved, you can reach at any point of the the chamber, any angle from the side ports, from the main port, wherever you wish to. You can get it from Epsilon. You ask them for a curved micro scissors.
You have with, posterior segment friends. I think she is not listening anyway. Best person will be the posterior segment friends who work with you. They can give you those micro scissors.
Also, I think Appasamy and
Everybody has it.
Indo-Weber and Modern Surgical makes these instruments. Yeah.
What is the merit and demerit of the horizontal chopping in this hard cataract?
In hard cataract, it's better to go for vertical chopping as it's the bag is fully occupied by a nucleus, a hard nucleus. So in order to do a horizontal chopping, you need to take the chopper first to the equator of the lens, and that's a very difficult proposition. It's going to cause a lot of problems like zonular dialysis, there is lack of space, and also if you are using a horizontal chopper without a cutting edge in between the olive tip and the shaft of the chopper, there is not going to cut the nucleus through. It's also very difficult to cut the hard nucleus per se, and it might induce lots amount of torque and cause more zonular dilations. Anything to add?
These days we are full of small pupils, right? So, to a small pupil, you chop it here, vertical chop. It extends right up to the equator. You did not see. So, vertical chop is the way to go. In small people, we are getting so many. Life expectancy has increased, diabetes is going to increase, and so all pupils are going to be small. So, going in for horizontal chop, it definitely you can do it if you have a large people have absolute visibility. But definitely vertical chop is the way to go for. Thank you.
One more question about the micro scissors. Can I use vitreous scissors instead of the micro scissors?
Yeah, exactly. These are the same
Does
ones.
it have any disadvantage?
It's generally straight. The micro scissors used in rear surgery, they are very straight. If you want to reach to certain angles, if you have a curved micro scissors, it helps. So you can ask any manufacturer to make a curved one, they will give you. And as I said, Epsilon has a curved one, so you can use that to your advantage.
Sir, in one of your videos you showed us how to convert to a temporal SICS. That you did. Any more specific precautions we are supposed to take while wound closure, because it is in cosmetic point of view and even from the infection point of view?
Basically, whenever you do a vitrectomy, may it be PICO or SICS, there is bound to be some postoperative hypotony. And your conjunctival sac, fluid from the conjunctival sac may go inside the eye, causing endophthalmitis. So, whatever little vitrectomy might be doing, SICS, conversion, not conversion, PICO, put in a suture, at least one. That will make the situation safe and also prevent irregular astigmatism. So, and don't think about that. So astigmatism, put in a suture and that will keep things absolutely safe. Okay?
So
So last question please, because the next session is going to start.
Scaffolding technique.
How to ensure?
In the bag. Like the nucleus is up.
It is difficult. And what you do as much as practicable. You should not be too heroic in removing cortex. Definitely large cortical mass needs to be removed. But small cortical fibers, either there, if you leave it, nothing is going to happen. What you need to say,
What extent we can leave the cortex? Like,
it is up to you. Obviously, you will attempt complete removal. But
And
you can use a white t-shirt to pull the iris, the pupillary region to local, to see whether the cortex has been removed from that area or not. White t-shirt helps.
Easy technique to get it done. Like we can put visco.
You can also sense no harm done. Like sulcus, you can do
or if the iron is in the bag. Put in the bag also.
you can, but it is difficult. In a scaffold technique, you have a rent. So if you are sure have to in the bag in case of single piece lens, you can. And you as much as you can, of course. I leave a little bit of translumin in the anterior chamber. That takes care of the inflammation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.